Invite you to ask your questions and comments, different things. Right there.
I've looked at some of the pictures that they handed out, and I've been in the...
Excuse me one second, I'm sorry.
Well, when you ask your questions, would you state your name and speak loudly so everybody can hear the questions?
Okay, my name's Sharp CG.
Okay.
Okay, I've looked at the pictures they sent out on that one paper, and I've been in the high school. And one of the things I have noticed is a lot of those problems could have been corrected when they came up, instead of going 10, 15 years down the road with it.
Okay, good question. Question is why haven't a lot of improvements been made as they came up?
Why weren't stuff fixed as they wrote?
Okay.
We have been addressing these problems. It's just that they compound themselves. And I think as a board, we've been addressing problems ever since I've been on the board. We've been working on the building. It's just in an old building, they get ahead of you. You can only charge so much in the building fund, and you just can't begin to keep up. I don't know if that answers your question, but we have been. If you walk into that building at any point, if you would take a tour through there, it looks nice.
I've taken the tour.
If you go downstairs, you see a lot of these problems. Maybe some of the wiring issues are kind of obvious, but just to walk through the building, it's a clean, well-kept building. So we've tried to keep it up, but it just, like I say, in old buildings, it gets ahead of you.
Okay.
How long is the current 10-cent bond, or the current 10 cents?
The building fund?
Yeah,
The 10 cent bill. How long has that been?
Yeah.
Okay. How long has the 10 cent building fund been around?
Just this year, we put 10 cents. We had been at 7 cents, I think, last year. Prior to that, we were at 5 cents. We went to 10 cents this year, just to kind of try and build up a little bit, because we've got issues at the grade school that needs to be addressed. And then we're taking 8 of that 10 cents off if the bond issue passes. Yes.
The flyers state that the initial bond is 19.8, indicating that this, being initial, being beginning. Is there something coming more down the line that just like this is just the opener, or there's more to come?
Your question is that the brochure states that the initial bond was 19.8?
Yes. Excuse me, 19.4.
19.4?
Yeah, the operative word here is initial. That's my question. Why does it say initial?
Are you referring to the bond issue or the levy?
The levy. The bond.
Levy, okay. It can't, a little bit of history of where we're at. We can charge 95 cents on the general fund. We can, or that's where we're at on the general fund. We can be at $1.10 or $1.05 according to the legislation. So we've got 10 cents on the building fund. The bond issue will be 11.4 cents above that after we take the 8 cents out of the building fund. Will it go up beyond the 19.4? It really, if valuations keep going up like they have, and that's just a projection, we don't know, it could drop, but historically valuations have went up, so that consequently means that your 19.4 will go down. Can't guarantee that.
But it can also come back, yes.
If valuations change, yes, it could.
Well, I guess we're kind of answering two questions at once here. The 8 cents that's on that the board is going to reduce for whatever period of time, that can be put back on at a later time, correct?
It could be.
Rises.
It could be, if times dictated, yes.
So it would change the 11.4.
Yes. Does that answer your question? Marty wants to speak to it a little bit.
I guess probably the main reason it says initial, because any change in it is 19.4 cents based on the valuation now. Any change in that valuation will change the amount of that levy. The dollars that if that levy is required to generate, the $740,000 a year, will not change. That stays constant for 20 years. Now, based on the last 10 years valuation growth, this isn't numbers pulled out of a hat. It went from 193,000 10 years ago, or I'm sorry, 193 million 10 years ago to 391 million now. That's a 203% increase. If we continue over the next 20 years at that same pace, we will be down to a 4.6 levy at the end of this bond. In 10 years, we'll be down to less than 10 cents. Now, this is going off history. As we all know, none of us have a crystal ball. The best thing we can do is go off the best figures we have, go off history, and project what will happen in the future. And I think many economists will tell us that with the money that's being spent, inflation is going to happen. And over the last 40 years, it's gone. You need $6 now to buy what it took $1 to buy 40 years ago. And that's one reason why, if you try to start saving money to do something now, you've got to try and outrun inflation. And that's why the one chart that Josh was showing you that showed that steady 13 cents, that was the 8 cents that we would have to leave on that you asked about. If it doesn't pass, we definitely will leave that 8 cents on. We'll have to. And we also will most likely pass this 5-cent levy that the board can pass, because we first off would need to generate enough money to replace that boiler system right off the bat, and it would take about all of that to do that, and we wouldn't have enough saved up to do much of anything else. But at any rate, that graph showed that about the 7th or 8th year, those lines cross. For the first 7 years or so, this will cost a little bit more than if it doesn't pass. From there on out, it gets more expensive if we don't pass it than if we do. And that's based on history. And that doesn't even take into consideration added efficiencies for the heating and air conditioning, or what you still need to spend at the end of that 20 years because you haven't done a lot of this work. Long answer to a short question. And I did want to explain why we truly aren't pulling numbers out of the hat when we say that we feel it will be less expensive for the taxpayers over the long term. And I know the statement's been made, let's not saddle our kids with debt. Well, it's the short term where it's going to cost a little more. When our kids are paying the taxes, that's when it's going to be cheaper.
Gail Lewin, or sorry, Nelson.
I'm Gail Nelson, and I would like you to explain to us why you guys feel it's necessary to build a new.
Question was, why did the board think it's necessary to build a new gymnasium?
Biggest issue here is we have to move the library. If we move it into the small, what we used to call the girls' gym, what we call the small gym now, that would be out of there. That would be one facility we couldn't use for practice. So we would have one